Moodle also has options for quizzes, so we are again going to click the add an activity or resource, and then down towards the bottom here is a quiz, and so again gives you a little bit of context information, so we can add that. We'll give it a title, so I'm going to call it quiz 3. You can give any sort of description, overview, guiding information about the quiz. There's a lot of different options that you have on this. I'm going to go through it just so you know that they exist, but you might need to chat with someone in academic technology to answer more specific questions. You can have it so you set everything up in advance and that it only opens when the test is supposed to be happening, so that is for a particular time limit. Although this might be a class that's completely online, you might still need to talk with disability services to understand time and a half or double time and students that have accommodations. So this would also be something that it's possible that we might have to have you create the quiz, and then copy it and have just a simple change in the time limit. Grade, even if you aren't going to be using the grade book, you can have it follow under different grade categories. But again, if you aren't using the grade book, it's not as important to fill all of that out. New page for every question, every 2 questions. So if you have a very long test, you might want to have it every 5 questions they have to go to a new page. Also, if you're having them use an online editors where they're going to be typing a lot, you might want to have it just 1 per question, because they might be on that page a little bit longer, just to make sure that everything refreshes. Question behavior, so you can have 10 questions and you could shuffle those questions, so that way 2 people, if they were sitting next to each other, they wouldn't have the same question at the exact same time. And again, if you had it only 2 questions per page, then it would be harder for them to toggle back and forth looking at each other's work. How questions behave. Are you giving them immediate feedback? The question was wrong, they click the wrong one, they hit submit, and you tell them, or is it going to be that the feedback is going to follow later on? And so again, on all of these, there's a question mark next to each one, and it will give you a little bit more information so you understand exactly what the terminology is that Moodle is using for any of these. And again, review options. So during the attempt, that's grayed out at this point. You're not going to probably have it so that it updates continually. Immediately after, later while the quiz is still open, and after the quiz is closed. So you can have, you can adjust these. You could make it so none of them are available at all either. This has to do with just the appearance and the decimal places within the grade, so we don't make too many adjustments on that. Don't really use the extra restrictions very much. Overall feedback. You can do this for particular grade boundaries. So this is used for placement exams sometimes, that if they received a grade of a certain percentage point, then they would be able to enroll in a particular level of a course in the fall. So there could be, this one says a grade boundary of 100, but you could say a grade boundary of 83% would allow you to take chemistry 132 versus 131 or so on. Common module, we don't really need to use that. Restrict access, most of these other ones we don't really need to make an adjustment on. So we've made some basic adjustments on the overarching requirements and guiding information on the quiz itself. If we hit save and display, it will tell us that there are no questions related to this quiz, which is important to know. We're going to hit edit quiz then, and it's just going to give you sort of a blank area, but there is an add button here. So we're going to click add, and there's a couple options that you have. I could start from scratch, and I could come in and click add, and it would give me all the different types of questions. Obviously there's a number of different options. If you are doing some calculation questions, you could use the Moodle option and and then of course evaluate if it meets the standards that you need. And if it doesn't, you can let us know and we can see what alternatives we have. For some of the calculations that folks maybe didn't think that it met the requirements, we were able to have an image of the question itself, so everything was still aligned and the HTML didn't misalign on that, and then the answers were either images or maybe just a numeric. So I'm just for today going to do multiple choice, and again it's going to call it Q1. So simple question, do you like dogs or cats? You can give some general feedback about the question as a whole, but then down here you can give the answers, and then on each one you also have a grade. And so this is how you say if one question is correct and the other one is not. You can also have questions that there's none, so those might be guiding questions at the very beginning. Just placement exams sometimes have this. Have you ever taken chemistry before in high school? Things like that. So they're not part of the grade. So there might be some of those questions. In this case, if we were saying that this was the correct answer and the other one was not, so you could put that all the other ones are at 0%, or you really don't have to put anything because this is the only one that's going to give the 100% on the grade. You could also, choose to give tiered if it was partial credit, but most often we just have it as one answer gets the correct grade, the other ones don't get any grades. And so we go down through, and combined feedback would allow you to just give some general feedback. On this one, I could also say, under dogs, yes, you are correct. No, the correct answer is dogs. And so you can give a very specific feedback, or you can just leave it blank and they would just know that they got the answer incorrect or correct. If you wanted to allow for multiple tries, meaning that they got one wrong and then they were allowed to try again and only get partial credit, this is also again where you would make those adjustments. And then when I'm finished, I can do save changes, continue editing. Again, this will allow me to continue to come back in and edit. If I'm completely finished, I can just do save changes. So now I have one question. The other option, instead of starting just with a quiz, is I also have options with this question bank. And so previously I had created a number of questions, and this is a way that you can also use questions that were maybe previously on another quiz or a test. So if you had a test earlier in the semester and now you're working on the final and you want to use some of those questions, you can come back in here to add. And instead of saying I want to add a new question, which is what we just built, I can come in and I can say I'm going to add a question from a bank. And this allows me to go through and see, let's see here. Okay, so I have another question in here. So what is your favorite color? And that allows me to select that particular question and add it to my quiz. So now I have two questions. And because of the way that I had adjusted it, saying that each question is on its own page, it's going to show that this question is page 1, this question is page 2. So there's some information that you can see just from this particular area. It even allows you, as I mouse over here, to remove the page break. So that would just mean that all the questions are on the same page. And then I can hit save. And if I went back here, and again here are breadcrumbs, so I'm on the edit quiz option. I can always just go back to the main quiz page, and at this point I don't have anyone that has taken this quiz, but I can preview it, see it exactly how a student would see it. They get a navigation of have they answered any of these questions. It gives me, how many points I received out of anything. I get this because I'm an admin on this, so they will not get the edit question, obviously. But in this case, I could say dogs are correct. And what is your favorite color? I believe it is yellow. I can come over here then and finish the attempt. And it has saved both of those. I can then, I'm not quite finished though. I did not submit all my questions. That was simply finished for one page. So I can hit submit all and finish. And it's going to say once I'm finished, it's completely finished, and can't retake anything. And then I can do that. And as a student, I will come here and I will see that it took me 49 seconds when I started, when I finished, I got 100%, and it gave me that feedback that I was looking for. So I have my feedback, I have my information. On the navigation for the student, they will see that they got 2 greens. If I had gotten one wrong, one would actually be a red X, and it would also show any of the ones that I had skipped in the process. If I go back to quiz 3 here, it did give me the preview, and this just shows that it wasn't a real person, it was just myself taking the preview. But otherwise you would see a list of students and how many folks had taken it, a quick overview of grades, and then you can go in and look at each individual one. I'm going to go back one more second to the main quizzes page. And this shows me all the different quizzes that I have on this particular course. There's one that a few other people had taken, and so when you set up that quiz and it's all ready and open, in this case all the quizzes didn't have a close date, and this was just for our student employees. There was a station skills quiz. It's really just one question, but I can go in here and go look at the attempts, and so this allows me to see who is in here, questions that they their attempts, when they took it, when it was started, when it ended, what their grade was, both for the question itself and then each for what the overall was. So this was the question. This one in particular, we had a partial credit. That's why the grade was that. And you can look at a very specific detailed view to see how long it took someone to take a quiz. So that's the quick overview of quizzes. Please do follow up with us if you have more specific questions and want to make an attempt at a small quiz to try it out with your students.